Selamat malam. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Pesta Sains, Fête de la Science 2021. I'm Gauthier. I work for the scientific cooperation between Indonesia and France. I will be the moderator for our webinar tonight. Thank you, everyone, for being with us tonight for this event organized by the Institut Français Indonesia, Institut Français. I hope you are all staying safe during this pandemic. This is our second webinar for Pesta Science. This year, our topic is about natural and human phenomena. Tomorrow, we'll have a speak about forest and tropical trees. Yesterday, we had talks about culture and local knowledge, but tonight, we're going to speak about volcanoes in Indonesia. What a fascinating topic with our two speakers, Dr. Frank Lavigne and Dr. Devi Kanuchavana. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. Just a quick introduction to Pesta Science. We are here to learn more about science. Don't hesitate to ask any question at any time in the chat box. We are going to keep the micros muted during the presentation to fully enjoy our presentations, but ask any question in the chat box. We will answer them at the end of our presentations. Thanks again for being with us tonight. And we're going to start our presentations by Frank Lavigne. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Frank Lavigne is graduated from university and did his PhD at the University Blaise Pascal in Clermont-Ferrand, and he's now a professor at Université Paris 1 Panthéon-Sorbonne in the geography department. He works. He has been working for many years with Indonesia, and he has been welcoming many Indonesian students in France too. He worked with many Indonesian researchers between our two countries. So don't hesitate to ask any question to Frank about this cooperation between our two countries. And tonight, Frank Lavigne will introduce us about how we can learn about the past volcanic eruptions in Indonesia, thanks to the Babad. Thank you so much, Frank Lavigne, for being with us tonight.
Bonsoir, selamat malam. Di sini masih siang, tapi di sana malam. So I will make this presentation in English, if I'm not wrong. But for the question, if there are any questions, you can ask in French, in Indonesia, maybe in Japanese if it's not too complicated. Okay, thank you very much. Salam sama Pak Devi. Comment ça va?
Oui, ça va bien. Et toi?
On se voit que par Zoom en ce moment. Hein?
Oui, toujours.
Mudah-mudahan bisa ketemu lagi sebentar lagi. Ok, bon, je vais partager mon écran. Tac, option. Tac. Vous me dites si c'est bon quand on voit l'écran. Pour moi, c'est partagé. Option. Vous voyez l'écran là?
Pas encore.
Ah, alors attends. Option partage avancé. Voilà. J'essaye comme ça. Hein, Non, toujours pas?
Toujours pas pour le moment.
Alors pourquoi il veut pas? Moi, il a un... Ah ouais, c'est bon, j'ai trouvé. Ça vient de moi. Tac, voilà. Là, ça devrait être bon.
Parfait, perfect. Thank you, Frank Lavigne.
C'est bon là?
Parfait, merci beaucoup.
Tac. Okay. So I will talk about the eruption of Mount Samalas again, because I made a presentation of this topic a few years ago, also for the Fête de la Science, if I'm not wrong. But for several years, we are still working there on the consequence of this eruption. So I will do a kind of update. Thanks to my Indonesian PhD students, there are at least two students from UGM who are continuing this study. So most of the updated data comes from their work. So we focus this talk not in volcanology. Volcanology, it's Devi who will talk much more on volcanology, but on the link between volcanology and so volcanological events and historical sources, what we call Babad. So just a few slides about the background about this eruption, which was one of the largest identified in the ice cores both in Greenland and Antarctica. So the age is 1257. It's already fixed. So 13th century, a long time ago, before the colonial period. So that's why historical data are a bit difficult to get compared to more recent eruptions. The climate response of this eruption has been already studied by a former student of mine and a big team. So we know much more. For a few years, we know that this eruption triggered climate consequences in Europe, in Japan, in America as well. So this is the drop of the temperature anomaly following this eruption. So you can see, compared to Tambora, for example, the temperature was a bit lower than after the Tambora eruption. So usually the temperature drop after a big eruption, what we call stratospheric eruption. So the objectives is twofold: to review the state of knowledge of the history of Lombok in relation with this eruption. It was because before this eruption, we know very few about the people and the life in Lombok before this eruption. So the Babad can help to get some useful information. And in this presentation, I also want to show the importance of interdisciplinary studies or multidisciplinary studies to solve some scientific puzzles. So the methods was very broad. It was a typical interdisciplinary study. It's difficult to say, to tell. So we combined a volcanological study with Padevi, data. We got data about the caldera, typical geomorphological analysis of the caldera, and also we use written sources because we found some Babads who describe the eruptions or describe the life in Lombok before the eruption, and also it provides some data about the resilience after the eruption, including the crisis management as well, the evacuations, and we got quite a lot of data in this Babad. So I call that local legends. The problem is that we never know if it's legends or actual data, actual historical sources, written sources. Is it true or is it not true? So it's very interesting to analyze this Babad. But we need to keep in mind that what is written is not, we are not sure that it's actual data or not. So it's written in Old Javanese on palm leaves, or what we call lontar in Indonesia. You can see some lontars here. And they describe, this Babad describe this eruption. So up to now, we found 3 Babads. We used 3 Babads which describe this eruption. Some data about have been already published, but some are still not yet published. So Babad Lombok, Suwung, and Babad Sembalun. This Babad in the Sasak tradition, it's interesting. What is interesting is that the content of the Babads must be revealed during a traditional ceremony. So in the form of singing, I can show you just a little example of these songs.
Setibanya kau sesampainya di negara Talbuang itu Sang Maharaja, tiba-tiba dengan kudrat iradat Allah yang Maha Kuasa turunlah hujan api. Hujan api langsung di Talbuang. Hujan bersama api, angin bersama api juga. Sang Prabu.
Okay, so I think it's a bit long, so I have not too much time to present this song. So you can have a rough idea of the way to get information. So I will shift directly on some results which show the link between the Babad and the actual events. So I put some sentences on the Babads, different Babads, and to compare with the scientific reality. So we can find some words, some sentences, interesting words such as pumice. Pumice and sand felt in the middle of the land. So there was, as far as I know, there was only one. The most recent eruption that formed some pumice is this eruption during the 13th century. So because of this sentence, we know that it relates to this eruption and not to another eruption. So pumice, what we call batu apung in Indonesia, batu kumbung in Bahasa Sasak in Lombok. So what is interesting is it's a very light rock, very easy to recognize. So when we made some interviews on local people, for example, to know if they found some batu apungs in their wells, for example, to have an idea of the thickness of the deposit, they recognize the batu apung, the pumice, very easily. So it's quite interesting, and it's this kind of rock is proof that the eruption was very big. So we found three main units of fallout. In white, the batu apung, the pumice, and another one which is more wet during the second phase of the eruption. But I will not detail all this. It's already a long time. I prefer to focus on the consequence. In Babad Sembalun, we found an interesting sentence. Sembalun is at the foot of Mount Rinjani and the former Samalas. It was written that there was no difference between days and night. It refers to thick fog. The fire was burning like lead melting in the heat. So the residents were fleeing. This, without doubt, refers to a big eruption. The problem with the Babad is that all of these Babads were written quite a long time after the eruption. That is one of the main methodological problems. This Babad Sasak balloon was written during the 17th century. The other about 16. It's not very fixed. So that is one of the problem, because they gather, the people who wrote this Babad gather oral history, it comes from oral tradition. So they put together some history, some history, some babads, but from dari mulut ke mulut, from mouth to mouth. Another sentence, interesting sentence, is the Babad Sugum. In the next day, it was the king, the emperor, that said, in the night 5 days, I will carry out. I will not read everything, but he talks about leaving this country, so leaving Lombok. After 5 days, the emperor and his people left their village and they arrived at Tahukah. Suddenly, fire rain fell from the sky. What is interesting in Tahukah is the former name of Taliwang, and Taliwang is in Sumbawa, not in Lombok, but it's Sumbawa. So when we compare the text in the Babad Sugum, this sentence, and the scientific data and what we call isopac map, the thickness of the asphalt here, it fits with the oral tradition and what is written in the Babad Sugum. We found a few centimeters, but in this area, 5 centimeters of asphalt. Another interesting sentence is Babad Sugum. There was no sea between Selaparang and Taliwang. Selaparang is in Lombok, Taliwang in Sumbawa. So maybe we can interpret this sentence as a Pemes raft, Batu Apung, who were floated in the strait between Lombok and Sumbawa. There are some pictures. You can find some pictures on the internet of some other examples in Chile, for example, for this one, or everywhere, because the Pemes raft are so thick that then we can easily walk on that, and the sea is not. We cannot see the sea anymore. So that's our interpretation. Another one, Mantrinjani avalanche and Mount Samalas collapse. That was from the Babad Lombok that the name Samalas came. It was not invented by some researchers, but it's the actual name in the Babad Sasak, in the Sasak language. And Mount Rinjani collapsed. Mount Rinjani is still here, and avalanche. So that means that I think this Babad Lombok refers to this sector collapse that, based on the Babad Lombok, was triggered at the same time at the collapse of Mount Samalas. So the caldera formed, and because of the void in this area, it was the slope of Mount Rinjani was destabilized and collapsed. So a long time ago, we calculated the void of this former Samalas. So it gives a rough idea of the volume of the eruption, about 40, but maybe it's more. It's a minimum volume. So the problem is that we, in our former paper in 2013, now it's already a long time ago, we made a mistake. We know now that this reconstruction was wrong. Why was it wrong? Because we imagined the former Samalas like Gunung berapi or a nice peak. But if you have a look on this map, and if some of you knows quite well the topography of Lombok, you can see in central Lombok there is a huge debris avalanche. There are a lot of hills. You can see the hills here a lot, thousands of hills, like at the foot of Mungalunggung, for example, in Java. And all these hills are called hummock in volcanology. And they are debris formed by a huge debris avalanche. The problem is that on the slope of the Mount Rinjani, there are no scarp, so no proof of a sector collapse, no mark of sector collapse. So the only solution is that this debris avalanche came from Samalas. But because the Mount Samalas disappeared, collapsed, we cannot find any scarps. But for sure, this comes from here. So that means that this reconstruction is wrong, and we need to add a huge scarp here, which will lower the volume. My PhD student, Alwan, is currently doing a paper of this. So we'll go a bit further because I have not too much time, I think. So in the Babad Lombok, there are also reference of large flows of debris, which can refer to PDCs, pyroclastic density currents, that we can find everywhere in Lombok, as thick as here we measure 50 meters, here 35, everywhere. The thickness of the deposit is huge. So it comes from this. This is the distribution of the PDC in Lombok here in the north, southwest, and southeast. An interesting sentence also in the Babad Suwung is that that we heard during from the elder during this song. When they arrived in Talkuwan, suddenly fire rain fell from the sky. I already mentioned it. Not only fire rain, but also burning winds. So that is very interesting, because burning winds, it's for sure, it's a PDC juga, but a dilute, what we call dilute PDCs, dilute pyroclastic density currents. In Bahasa Indonesia, awan panas, yeah. It's an awan panas, but the what you call the surge, so the dilute part of the awan panas who cross the strait and touch Sumbawa, the coast of Sumbawa. It's very, very similar what is described for Krakatau in 1883. Dilute PDC travel of the sea up to 40 kilometers from Krakatau. So it's the distance is a bit similar. So and the eruption was much bigger than the Krakatau one. What else? People escape, comes from, some of them climb the hills. So there were some earthquakes like during all eruptions. And maybe this, because people climb the hills, maybe this sentence refers on Lahar. Maybe we can see the ash deposit, the Batu Apung here, the pumice deposit from ashfall, from the fallout. And here, horizontally, it's debris from the lahars, for sure, lahars or Banjir, but after the eruption. What we found also, one of the most important sentence found in the Babad Lombok is that this flow destroyed Pamatan the seat of the kingdom. All houses were destroyed and swept away, floating on the sea. Many people died. So we found the name of Pamatan in this Babad Lombok a few years ago. And it's very interesting because we never know, we never heard about this former capital, which looks like a big city based on the description in the Babad Lombok. But so far, we still don't know where it was seated. So what do the Babad tell about this lost city of Pamatan? There are interesting sentences. So I put both in Bahasa Indonesia and in Bahasa Inggris. But when we see these sentences, it refers to written built fortresses, fences, high walls. The city was solid, so it looks like a big city based on this Babad Lombok. And there are some other information about kitchen. There were meeting halls. The road network was extended. Beautiful gardens with some what was cultivated at that time, which is not so different as what is cultivated now. So there are also some inscription found beneath the pumice. So there are a lot of information. We can find quite a lot of information in this Babad. Also, you can see that they were business. They made business with the Orang Bajau from Sulawesi, for example, and other people. A lot of archaeological remains were already found with some coming from Southeast Asia, continental Southeast Asia, or some from China. So there was a lot of business already at that time, during the 13th century. And this is written that penduduk Pamatan banyak, hampir 10,000, near 10,000 people were living there. Is it true or not? We still don't know, but at least it's written in the Babad, so maybe. We still don't know. So one of the main questions to finish this presentation, which is still under debate, where was Pamatan located? We can get some information using 3 scientific approaches, looking for archaeological remains. So there are only a lot. This one we can see in the Museum of Mataram. So this is one way. Another way is to use geomorphological data, and especially we try to reconstruct the former shore, from paleo rivers, paleo shore. So we use some geological drillings, and we try to find the pumice, the extension of the pumice. So the depth of the pumice, for example, here in the Islamic Center, if you know, some of you know Mataram, we can find some pumices up to 8 meters, and below 8 meters there are no more pumice. So that means that during the 13th century, the former topography was 8 meters below the present one. So we use this everywhere. We made a lot of points. We use also the knowledge of the local people, what we call participatory stratigraphic records. People who did their wells, or drillers, professional drillers, have a very good knowledge of the stratigraphy. And especially when you ask about Batu Apung, they usually know where they stop. So we also gather this data. So this is the results. We get a lot of points to know the depth of the paleo surface, and the main result is the reconstruction of the paleo shoreline. This is the former shoreline. So that means this is useful because if the archaeologists want to look for Pamatan or other archaeological remains, they don't need to look for Pamatan in this area, because at the time of the eruption, it was still the sea, under the sea. So, and the last way to get some information is to finish with the Babad, is to track Pamatan from the Babad. It's difficult, but there are interesting sentences. In the foot, Pamatan was located in the foot slope of a volcano. The problem is which one, because there are several volcanoes adjacent to hilly areas for evacuation. It was a coastal city, but so there are all these desa were mentioned in the Babad. So before the eruption, all these villages already exist. So I think we can. There are two scenarios maybe to interpretation to find Pamatan. Maybe the first hypothesis is that Pamatan was located not far away from Mataram, near Narmada, maybe, yeah, because in one of the Babad it refers to people evacuation to Jeringo. Jeringo is here, not far, but other people evacuated in the eastern part of Lombok, so it's a bit far, and the Samalas is here, so it's a bit strange. So another alternative, and also in Jeringo there are a lot of deposits, so it was difficult to evacuate there because of the ashfall, of the pumice fall. So I think it's not too likely. And the second scenario was that Pamatan were located at the foot of the present Rinjani, in the east part of Lombok, and it was more easier to evacuate in this area, in the hills, or in the hills in the center of Lombok. So we still don't know. It's still a mystery, and that's good that there are still some mysteries around this eruption. There are still many work to do. Thank you very much, and I will hear the talk of Devi very interestingly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Terima kasih, Pak Frank, for the very interesting talks. It's very fascinating to see how you combine Babas with your research. It's very interesting. I'm sure many of us have many questions for you. Don't hesitate to ask them in the chat box. We will answer them after the presentation of Padevi. Padevi is a volcanologist. He's a seismologist as well. He graduated from ITB, Institut Technologie Bandung, and then lived many years in Europe, where he received his PhD at the Université Libre de Bruxelles. He's now a researcher at the Center for Volcanology and Geological Hazard Mitigation, and he has at the head of Eastern Indonesia Volcanic Hazard Mitigation. Thank you so much, Padevi, for being with us tonight and for introducing the different volcanic disaster mitigations in Indonesia to us.
Thank you, Gauthier, for the opening. Good evening or for those in Indonesia, and good noon for everyone in France. And it's a pleasure for me to be invited in this this workshop, not workshop. And Frank, can I share my screen?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Thank you. So I will start to share my screen. Today I will talk about the volcanic disaster mitigation in Indonesia. We will mainly talk about three things. The first is the history, the development, and the challenges that we will and still we encounter during the present. So this first image, maybe some of you recognize this is the image from the eruption of Merapi volcano, and this Merapi is currently in eruption phase as well. But at 2010, there was a big eruption, the largest after more than 100 years, and caused many fatalities, also destructions everywhere. And this gives us lessons that can learn from and make better mitigation for the future. So we'll talk about history. I took an image from France paper. It's a Samalas in 1257 that we heard just now. It was the largest eruption in the human history. So, in fact, the largest volcanic eruptions in human history occurred in Indonesia. So, you know about Samalas and Rinjani just now. 1257 eruption is the biggest eruption in Indonesian history until now. And the second one was Tambora in 1815. It was also a big eruption, a large eruption, and caused so many fatalities as well as destructions. And the effect is not only in Indonesia, but also globally. And in Krakatau, 1883, there was also big eruptions. And if you see the spans of time, it's not that long. So, I mean, from 1815 to 1883, it's a fascinating eruptions happened within 100 years, less than 100 years. So we experienced so much volcanic eruptions, and some of the largest eruptions in the world happened here in Indonesia. So it is not as notable. So that's why Frank Levine and other scientists love to come to Indonesia. It's a heaven or a paradise of a volcano. So it's a paradise volcano observatory. So you can say that. I hope Frank will agree with me. And and we see that also we have to know that volcanic eruptions are the most far-reaching geological hazards compared to any other geological hazard. We know that there are earthquakes, tsunami, and other geological hazards, but volcanic eruptions are the most far-reaching. So Frank found the ash of Samalas in the North Pole and in the South Pole. You can imagine that it's the ashes are going globally, and people documented this these events in the past. And one of the documentation that we see in the screen on the screen is that this painting from of Flint Castle in the sunlight, veiled by ash from Tambora volcano volcanic explosive eruptions of the April 10th, 1815. So this was taken during the summer 1816. So you can imagine that during the summer you have less sunlight and you have ashes in the sky. And this happened not in Indonesia, it's in England. So it's very far from Indonesia, but the effects is very global. And that's why volcanic eruptions made so many effects, not only in the country of the origin of the volcanoes, but also globally. And as of now, we have 66% of the world's volcanic threat. So you can imagine that if we normalize all volcanic threats around the world, 66% of them located in Indonesia. So we are threatened by volcanic earthquakes, but we are fascinated also by volcanic eruptions. And as we've seen, not only the number of volcanoes that are so many in Indonesia, but also so many victims caused by volcanoes in Indonesia. And these are some facts that we have now. So formally, we say that we have 127 active volcanoes. 78 of these volcanoes erupted in the last 10,000 years in the Holocene. So 40 volcanoes caused fatalities. So even if there are 78 volcanoes erupted during the Holocene, but only 42 volcanoes caused fatalities, not all of them. And as of now, 7 to 12 volcanoes erupted every year, and at least 2 volcanoes erupted every day. It's quite amazing statistics that we have. See that this is Indonesia. So we have islands inhabited by volcanoes. So it's amazing. And so I haven't gone to all of these volcanoes. I think you will not have time in your lifetime to visit all the volcanoes in Indonesia. Yeah, I hope that I could go to do all of them, but it's difficult. And so there are so many volcanoes. Almost all islands have volcanoes, except for Kalimantan or Borneo, and also Papua that has no volcanoes. But mainly, many islands have volcanoes. So they experience eruptions. And 6 of them are submarine volcanoes. So we have like submarine volcanoes in Sulawesi area, so the northeast part of Indonesia, and also in the southeast part of Indonesia, in Maluku Sea, and also in the east Nusa Tenggara or East Flores. And these are also some statistics. So we have, this is the statistic of volcanic eruption hazard types that cause fatalities in Indonesia. So if we see this, we know that, the most frequent volcanic hazards are those that most often cause fatalities. And that are lahar and pyroclastic flow. So lahar and pyroclastic flow, or awan panas, are the main or the most frequent volcanic hazards that cause fatalities. And it was they are followed by ballistics or volcanic bombs, and also the tephra and ash falls, then tsunami, landslide, gas, lava flow, steam explosion, famine and disease. But the interesting part is that the ones that cause the most fatalities are secondary hazards. It's not the primary hazards, it's the secondary hazard. They are the famine and disease and also tsunami. So if you combine all of them, more than 60% of the fatalities caused by the secondary hazards, not the primary hazards. So and this is quite interesting that we can say that if we have volcanic hazard that frequently occur over time, maybe we can prepare and people are adjusted, or they have made adaptation and they have trained themselves to get ready for the events. But for the non-typical events like tsunami, it is difficult. What was happened in 2018 after the tsunami of Sunda Strait, after the collapse of Anak Krakatau, was one of them. It was happened suddenly, and then it caused so many fatalities. I think it's around 400 people died at that time. So all of the victims of volcanic eruption are generally those who live or who are close to volcanic areas. Yeah, there are some victims that are far from volcanoes that in terms of victims, there are many victims that are located far from the volcanoes, but mainly they are close to volcanoes. So this is an image of Tangkuban Perahu. It's maybe if I show this for European people or many other people outside Indonesia, they will think that this is just a hill, or it's a volcano. So it's a volcano with fantastic visitors, so many visitors, so many cars, so many stores, so many buildings, just on the rim of the volcano. It is what makes volcanoes in Indonesia is how to say that? Yeah, we have like two parts. So in one part, it provides you economic advantages, but in other part, it could give you unexpected hazards. And now we will go to the development. As was mentioned earlier, we need to go back to the history. So the only thing that we have we must do to avoid disaster is doing the mitigation. And mitigation has been pursued by our ancestors. Maybe some of you know about this image. This is the Noah Ark. So it's a part of mitigation before. So people try to save their lives from the threats of possible disasters in the future. And mitigation has been proven to reduce and prevent fatalities. Maybe not prevent all of them, but it significantly reduced the fatalities over time. And statistically in Indonesia as well, we have less and less fatalities, but more and more refugees or evacuees saved by the governments or local authorities. And to reduce risk, we have to understand the concepts that we know that we cannot stop volcanic eruptions, but we can strengthen our capacity and reduce the vulnerability. So consider us as the mice. So we want that cheese, but there is a trap. So we need to be cautious, and we need to understand the potential hazards that may come. So we need to have a capacity. We need to understand the hazards, and we need to also to decrease the vulnerability factors. One of them is to not staying very close to the hazard sources, and the capacity in this illustration. It's a mice, but it's a helm. But in reality, we can educate people how to make them understand the hazards and how to do things that are important so that you are not affected during the volcanic eruptions. So the risk mathematically, it's like a hazard times vulnerability divided by capacity. So we cannot stop the hazards, so we can decrease the vulnerability, or we can increase our capacity. And to increase our capacity, we need to understand about the hazards itself. So we need, in the past, like what Frank Levine have said, people were documenting all the events. So it's helpful for us, for the next scientists, that now, so we know what happened in the past, and so we can reconstruct and we can learn or we can assess what is the potential hazards in the future. So all the inscriptions are documenting many volcanic eruptions and their impact in Indonesia. Frank has shown the lontar. So the inscriptions are in the form of the leaves, and also the papers, and also the rock inscriptions, and they are documenting so many eruptions in Indonesia. Frank has mentioned about the Babad Lombok, but there was also Babad Jawi, who that mentioned a lot of story about the eruptions of Mount Kelut in East Java, and also there's also the Pustaka Raja Purwa in the year 500. It mentioned the eruptions of Krakatau, and there was also the others. And one of the rock inscription I showed you here is the Prasasti Rukam. So it's a rock inscription in near Berapi. So it was mentioned that people in that village was covered by the deposit of the eruptions. And so it was documented since long. but the real disaster mitigation maybe only started in Indonesia in early 1920s. So this image on the right is an image of a drainage system built by the Dutch at that time. And the idea is to reduce the volume of the crater lake. So it was a successful project. 90% of the lake water was decreased. So from 40 million cubic meters to less than 2 million. So the idea is to decrease the lahar hazards, and it was in fact it was a successful project. And up until now, we still manage this tunnel, so we keep drain the water system out of the colored lake to maintain the lake water to be on about 2 million, and it will significantly decrease the lahar hazards. So how then after that we develop. So and I divide the development of volcanology in Indonesia into 3 periods, main periods. So the year 1500 to 1800s were mostly there are documentations in the form of communications or paintings, but it is mostly non-scientific reports. They are mostly non-scientific reports. But since 1800 to 1900, people are the scientific or the scientists have already entered Indonesia. So they started to publish scientifically about volcanic eruptions, and one of the most popular one was made by Verbeek in the 19th century. He published the Krakatau eruptions, and after that, the science of volcanology is becoming flourishing, not only in Indonesia, but also all over the world. And the third part is the institutional development. So my office, our center, was started in 1920. So it's the first institutional development for volcano monitoring. So now the volcano is monitored continuously. We use multidisciplinary research methods, and now one of the main, one of the things that an important achievement that we have is that we now have established the early warning system. So, and these are the methods that you do to understand volcanoes, and these are the methods that also developed in the last centuries. So we have a lot of many other methods that we develop, and even if we learn all of them, still it is not difficult. It is not easy to understand volcanoes. But the idea is that we want to know any anomalous activity around the volcano in terms of geology, hydrology, seismicity, gas, deformations, and etc. And we put so many instrumentations around volcanoes to understand what happened inside the volcanoes. So basically, a volcanologist is a volcano doctor, so who examine volcanoes to forecast eruptions. That's the idea of volcanology. So we, to do that, we need to monitor the volcano. As I mentioned before, it's like a doctor. So we need to know the symptoms. So if we go to a doctor, the doctor will examine us. So we have seismometer at volcanoes. We have stethoscope for us as human, and it's almost similar. So we want to find out all the symptoms that happen at volcanoes, and then after that we will see the historical activities. So it's like a database of previous activities, so that we know what happened now compared to the previous activities. And then after that, we make a forecast. But also, sometimes we need expert elicitations. We need to have another opinion from other scientists, so that we will have an enriched knowledge about volcanoes, not only by our own interpretations, but also we need to regard the historical activities and also the expert opinions. And the outcomes is the alert level. So the alert level is the outcome. That's the early warning system. So this is the outcome or the output of that system. We have a volcano early warning system. In Indonesia, we have 4 levels. So each level determines the level of the activity. It is not to predict when the volcano will erupt. It is just a reflection of what actually happened at the volcano. So, and this alert level is not only like that, but it's related to the actions for other institutions. So if we put the alert level in level 1, then what should the other stakeholders and also the societies do? And if we go to level 4, then there are also other procedures for other agencies how to respond. And this is related to actions, not only actions, but also budget. So if we have volcanoes with highest alert level, then it's almost sure that we will need more budget. And also for the population, if we go at level 1 to level 3, maybe there will no evacuation, but if we go to level 4, there should be some evacuations. So another developments now that people can access this website. So you can visit our website Magma Indonesia. So here you can find information of all geological hazards, including volcanic activity, landslide, earthquake, and tsunami. Now this information is accessible for all people, not only for Indonesian, but also for other people. And we can, you can browse all of them. But basically, this is the way how our institute try to provide people with some important information so that they can be prepared if there is an event or some situations that need to be aware of. And so after that development, we still have challenges, and it's about communications. The main challenge is about communication for me. And maybe you know this movie, and this is Dante Speak. It's a very interesting American movie, and I played in that movie. It's a joke. It's Pierce Brosnan who plays as a volcanologist, a very handsome volcanologist, and very clever scientist. He predicted the eruption without uncertainty. So he can predict that this volcano will erupt. So, and that's what he did in that movie. And there are dumb volcanologists that do not believe him. So, but these volcanologists, they rely on scientific literature and aware of the uncertainties, because for Pierce, he was really sure that there will be an eruption. But for the others, they think that there are some uncertainties. But in this film, the director made that Pierce is the good guy, and the other are the dumb. The volcanologists are the good guy. So, and in the end, at the end of the movie, there were big eruptions, and the clever and handsome guy was right, and the dumb official volcanologists were wrong. So that's the movie. So that's the problem. It makes people think that that's the way the volcanologist works. So they know where that the volcano will erupt. So it's something that maybe you don't feel it consciously, but unconsciously you will perceive in your head that the volcanologist can predict eruptions, and the reality is this. So when this was happened, this is the real condition. So before that was a film, that this is the real conditions. So you know what happens when so you see on the left headline: the priest climbed to top of Bali's rumbling volcano to prove scientists wrong. So that's see that was a shocking headline. So read it, and And also people think that, is there anything wrong in determining the alert status? So people are talking about right and wrong, right and wrong. And some of them make it worsen. So I was interviewed to say that, you see on the bottom right, I said it was impossible to say that Agung would definitely erupt. So only that data showed that there was an increasing probability that it will. There is no volcanologist in the world who can predict precisely when a volcano will erupt. So I say that, and volcanoes are a stochastic system. Many complexities are unknown by the human brain and technology. But you know, what was the headline? The headline was Bali volcano eruption could be hours away after the unprecedented seismic activity. It was really contrary what was. So I protested this journalist, but this was something that happened repeatedly, and we need to see this as a homework, not only for us as volcanologists, but also maybe for some from communication scientists. And in the reality, this is the condition when you face a crisis. People demand certainty. Will this volcano erupt? That's the question. But in volcanology, the only certainty is uncertainty. So we must encounter that. We always encounter uncertainty. So this is a picture showing that when a volcanologist see that there was an increasing intensity of monitoring parameters, so they need to react. So at certain points, like in this green decision window, we need to make a decision. So a decision that can be eruption, or this volcano can be back to sleep again, or it will do some fluctuations and then erupt, or do some fluctuations and back to sleep. And these are 4 scenarios that happen not only in Indonesia, but all over the world. It could happen like this. So, but at this decision window, we must make decision. And if we make a good decision, then people will happy with that. But if we are not, they will think that we do a failure. So, and the takeaways, this is my almost last slide. We have problems with knowledge. So they have problems with knowledge. We need to understand that volcanic eruptions until now cannot be predicted precisely. So there is always uncertainty. And in fact, uncertainty is important. It's critical for volcanology because it spurs scientists to engage in further research. So like Frank said in his presentation, there was still some mystery. So because there was still some mystery, there was still some things to do. And that's good for us, for scientists, that we can learn more and study more. So, and the second part is the responsibility. Many people think that volcanologists are in charge of everything, but in fact, we are not. During a volcanic crisis, there are many stakeholders with complementary tasks. So in the movie, Pierce Brosnan do everything alone. He saved people, he analyzed data and others. But in reality, volcanologists only analyze data and they communicate the outcome. And in terms of communication, we see that in the previous examples that we saw, there are right and wrong, something like that. But in fact, in volcanology, there are no right or wrong decisions, as well as there are no right expert or wrong expert. The things that we find is that how we need to understand that there are some uncertainty. When we choose the highest probability, it doesn't mean that the lowest probability will not happen. It could happen. And the last slide, it's quite terrifying, but it's an important note that volcanic hazards are natural, but disasters aren't. So we shouldn't repeat disasters, even if volcanic eruptions repeat itself. Thank you.
Terima kasih, Pak Devi. Thank you so much for this fascinating presentation, very pedagogical too. I like this aspect of staying humble about science, that we can't know everything and we have to say there is no right and wrong. We like your analysis about this. Thank you so much again. Feel free to ask any question now in the chat box. As Frank said earlier, you can ask them in French, in Bahasa Indonesia, in Bahasa Inggris. So feel free to ask them. We have a first question for Frank, coming from Thierry. How did the Lombok people react to learning about the Samalas eruption during your research? Did it affect their perception of the volcanic risk in Lombok?
At that time, they were quite surprised because some of them were aware of the Babad Lombok, but quite a few. Many people were much more interesting about the content of the Babad Lombok when they learned that there was a big eruption. But before our paper, the people were only surprised because they have absolutely no idea that there was a very big eruption that occurred a few centuries ago. So yeah, they were quite surprised and very, very interested. People from Lombok are very interested about their history, their volcano, because there are not so many studies about Lombok actually, and especially about the volcano of Lombok, about Rinjani, and they are very interesting, especially the porters on the slope of Mount Berapi. They ask a lot about they want to know more about this eruption and the history of this volcano, the former eruptions, and so on. So that's it. Maybe Pak Dewi bisa tambah lagi ya.
Yeah, I didn't do research on the people. Not yet.
But they are very interested in, especially about the Babad, the content of the Babad, because there are still a lot to learn about the former history of Lombok. For example, in the Museum of Mataram, at the time when I visited the museum several times, and I was working with people from the museum, the staff of the museum, and they told me that there are still about 2,000, if I'm not wrong, 2,000 lontar that were not yet studied or even open. They are still closed from years, and nobody is working on them. The main problem is that there are very few people who can read the content of the lontar. That's the main problem, and we were helped by some elders in Lombok who still can still read and understand and translate the content of the Babad, of the lontar, but there are a few, and they are quite old. So the young generation usually doesn't care about the Babad, or even if, not that they don't care, but they cannot, they don't want to learn from the elders. There are some of them, a few, and that's a problem, because in a few years maybe, or decades, I don't know, if nobody can translate the Babads, all this ilmu, will be lost. So I hope some. I hope maybe some students who are hearing me are motivated to learn bahasa Poso Jawa kuno, Sasak kuno, Bali kuno. It's very important.
Thank you, Papang, for your answer. We have questions coming from our YouTube channel too. Maybe for Padevi, coming from Jean-Luc, as a general manner, about your Center for Volcanology and Geological Hazard Mitigation, how is your relation with populations during the recent crisis, like for the berapi in 2010 and Krakatau? How was your relation with locals and population?
Yeah, we need to keep a good relations with all stakeholders and also the population. So during the crisis, normally our institution will send a team to make like what we call as a socialization. So we talk with people and we let them know what we can do and what we cannot do, and some unexpected outcomes might happen, like what's happened in Krakatau, that people didn't feel that they have the early warning from the government, and but it is a lesson that it's a perpetual lessons that we learn at every crisis. That but we try to maintain good relations with people. Some of them are not happy. Some of them can accept this, but that is normal. So some of them resistant, some of them followers. That's some situations that we encountered in the past, and maybe again in the future. And so this communication or relations with the stakeholders and the community, I think that it's an important aspect that we need to keep it good from time to time. But now, because there are technologies, like we have, like in certain, in every volcanoes, I think at every volcano areas, people now are making like a WhatsApp groups. They make communications between stakeholders and between the societies and also the press, the journalists, so that they will keep updated with the activity of the volcanoes, and so they will be more prepared for that. So that's my answer for Jean-Luc. How are you, Jean-Luc?
Thank you, Jean-Luc, for your question, and thank you, Padevi, for your answer. We have a next question for Pafrank in Bahasa. My colleague Stephanie will read it for us. Thank you, Stephanie.
C'était la question qui était sur le chat là.
Oui.
Yes, Bapak, saya bantu ya. About Gunung Samalas or Rinjani, or maybe Rinjani is still a part of the wall of the Samalas, or maybe Rinjani is another volcano different from Gunung Samalas and still has the potential to erupt.
Il faut demander ça. You should ask to Padevi the potential to erupt. Yeah. In fact, it's the same system, the same volcanic system. It's a kind of big volcano, but within this complex, we call that Rinjani volcanic complex, there are several volcanoes. So I don't know exactly. I'm not a geophysicist, and to know if there is a relation between Samalas and Rinjani. They are very close, so maybe, but what we are sure is that Mount Rinjani did not erupt for a long time. I don't know exactly when. It's not very clear. But when Samalas erupted, there was only one eruption from this volcano. The Mount Rinjani did not occur at the same time. Otherwise, we would have found some deposits from Rinjani, maybe intercalated. It's different. So I don't know. We need to know if the how to say, the structure of the volcano to answer this question, but I cannot answer that. I'm not sure they are connected because now the activity focuses on Barujari, so on the former Samalas. Barujari is the anak Samalas, seperti as in Krakatau, anak Krakatau is the son of Krakatau. It's the same. So the activity focus here, and nothing happened in Rinjani, but it doesn't mean that Rinjani will not occur for sure. Devi can, I think, add something that's we don't know, but it's still an active volcano, Rinjani, so it can erupt again for sure. If I'm not wrong, by the way, yeah.
Yeah, I think it will erupt again, but not very soon, maybe. Not very soon. And yeah, I think like other volcanoes experienced caldera formation would need some times, or maybe the magma reservoir, the big magma reservoir, have already depleted, but that's an assumption. We haven't done the topography at Rinjani. We've done that at some other volcanoes, like in Toba, and there are some publications. So we know that some volcanoes erupted, and made a caldera formation. Then after that, it was followed by mild and even small eruptions. That what happened in Rinjani. So if Rinjani will erupt again, I believe that there will be a big signs. I mean, if there are big magma moving upwards, I don't believe that there will be no signs. So I think if you ask, is it possible? It is a possibility. But for now, as of now, it's not likely. It's less likely to happen very soon.
Okay, thank you, Bapak Frank and also Bapak Devi. We have also Bapak Anwar and Irwan from Kalimtu Volcanoes Observatory. We have them in our YouTube channel. So welcome, Bapak, and thank you for joining us today. I let Guti to continue.
On n'entend pas Gauthier.
Sorry, merci Franck. We have a question coming for Padevi from Claudia, she's wondering how much does the installation of volcano early warning system cost, and is there actually a financial system long term in Indonesia for this investment?
How much? That's quite difficult to answer. So, in fact, the early warning system is very complex. It's not about instruments that will let you know that the volcano will erupt. It's not something like that. It's integrations of instrumentations, integration of another system like information disseminations, and also some capacity building activities. That's the big image of early warning system. But for the equipment, for example, if you mean that is the equipment, so most of the equipment in Indonesia is financed by the Indonesian government, but we made also some cooperation, like with France. We also do cooperation with IRD and with another country like the US, Japan, and some of them donated the instruments as well after the research project finished. and there are I personally don't know exactly the price of each of the instruments, but for one station I could give a rough estimate. It's about maybe $50,000, something like that for one station only, and we must install, of course, not only one station. Therefore, it's not cheap. It's very expensive, and as the budget from the government is limited, we need to install instruments in stages. So it's not directly install everything in one phase, but we need to do it step by step. So yeah, so that's that's what I can answer you.
Thank you, Pak Devi, for this answer. We have another question for you in Bahasa Indonesia.
Oke, Bapak. Dari Alfika.
Oke. Oh, Alfika.
Apakah tingginya jumlah korban atau tingginya kerugian yang dialami oleh korban bencana berkaitan erat dengan komunikasi dan peran opinion leader terhadap bagaimana mitigasi bencana masyarakat setempat, semisal pada kejadian Gunung Berapi dan Bah Marijan? Terima kasih.
Oh, should I answer this in Indonesian or in English? Well, Français, because the question is in Indonesian.
Boleh dalam bahasa Indonesia.
Il faut pratiquer ton français, tu vas oublier ton
C'est aussi correct.
Okay, maybe in Indonesian first, so she will get the point correctly. Apakah tingginya korban ini berkaitan dengan komunikasi? Ya, ini sangat berkaitan dengan komunikasi ya. Artinya memang komunikasi ini sangat penting antara kita sebagai volcanologist dengan masyarakat. Dan tetapi dalam satu kondisi kita tidak bisa melebihi kapasitas kita. Dalam artian begini, untuk kasus Mbah Marijan ini kan terkait dengan kepercayaan dan keyakinan juga. Artinya saat itu pemerintah sudah berusaha untuk melakukan upaya persuasi, ya berbicara langsung, bahkan saat itu gubernur sudah minta kepada Mbah Marijan untuk kembali ke tempat kembali ya, untuk turun ke tempat yang aman, tapi karena titah beliau tidak mau meninggalkan. Nah, sebetulnya beliau bukannya tidak percaya ya dengan vulkanologi, beliau percaya, tapi beliau sendiri juga berusaha untuk menghormati janjinya, sehingga saat itu ya ada masyarakat lain yang ikut tinggal di sana dengan Mbah Marijan yang menjadi korban juga. Jadi memang dalam kondisi tertentu kita kesulitan untuk hal yang seperti ini. Ini juga dialami di beberapa krisis gunung api yang lain. Jadi memang apa yang kita lakukan adalah kita berusaha untuk berkomunikasi dengan tokoh-tokoh setempat. Karena tokoh-tokoh setempat itu mereka sangat penting. Artinya bagi kami ya. Karena ketika tokoh-tokoh itu bisa mempercayai apa yang kita sampaikan, maka tokoh-tokoh itu akan lebih mudah untuk memberikan penjelasan kepada masyarakat sehingga mereka bisa mengikuti rekomendasi dari pemerintah. Mungkin itu. Should I answer that in English too, or I don't have to?
I think it's enough. Thank you, Bapak.
Terima kasih, Bapak. We have a question for Pak Frank. In your experience, how accurate is the local legends as Babad, or are they accurate compared to what really happened, to the real situation? How does it match the real situation, maybe?
Yeah, I try to answer in the chat. So, yeah, I try to show that part of the content of the Babads are right. It fits well with the scientific data. So that's what we try to do is to check if the content of the data fits with the scientific data of the Babad fits with the scientific data. And yeah, some of the sentences I presented show that it fits very well. So some of the content is right, but not all. But not all, because the Babad were written several centuries after the event. Yeah, for sure there were some misinterpretations or some things that were added, and everything is not sure. So, and as I wrote, I'm not an anthropologist as well. I'm a geographer, so even for anthropologists, I think it's a difficult task. Apology for for a geographer. But and another thing that is interesting about this the content of this Babad, I was told by the how to say, a local kind of dukun, yeah, in Sembalun, the people who translated the Babad Sembalun. He told me, I show a picture of him during the presentation. He told me that during the translation, he was not allowed to translate everything, because some of the content of the part of the content of the Babad is like how to say en français on dirait tabou, en indonésien aussi d'ailleurs, c'est tabou. Et for example, when in the Babad there are some description, he told me, yeah, in the Babad there are description of the local people who were still living without clothes, or who looked like orang primitive, comme dia bilang primitive. He didn't translated this content because it's taboo, he told me. So part of the content of the Babad is lost, I think, because of this taboo. And so we lost some information, and for sure some are a bit déformés, comme on dit déformés, je ne sais plus en indonésien, et même en anglais. Donc, yeah, it's a bit difficult. We cannot trust everything. We need to select. And the selection is subjective, unfortunately.
Thank you, Pak Frank, for this answer. We have a question for Padevi.
Okay. From Rahman Abdul, does Indonesia have a volcanoes map of each island? Is Mount Bawakaraing in Sulawesi as a volcano because there is a caldera wall in the inner side of Mount Bawakaraing? Thank you, Pak Devi.
I think I have shown the volcano maps of Indonesia. So in Sulawesi, we have active volcanoes in the northern part of Sulawesi, but not in the southern part of Sulawesi. So Mount Bawakaraing is not an active volcano, so you don't need to be worried with that. You don't consider Bawakaraing as an active volcano, even if there is a caldera. That's all.
Thank you, Padevi. We have another question coming from our YouTube channel for you, Padevi, about when you have to take a decision about whether it's right or wrong, whether there will be an eruption or not. Johan from our chat is wondering if the decision is wrong, how hard it is to take the decision, maybe Mm, I don't know the question Joan wanted today to ask.
Okay. What happened if, for example, we say that there is possibly a probability that there will be an eruption and then there was no eruption?
I think that was the point of Joan.
Maybe, yeah, some people are happy. I mean, some people who live near the volcano, they are happy if the volcano is not erupting. But some people are angry if they were evacuated. For example, some people they have already evacuated and went to places and leave their homes, and then yeah, they need to leave everything. But then the volcano is not erupting. They will, some of them, they will be angry. So that's the condition, and we need to accept this. So not only accept this, but we need to explain to people that there are uncertainties that we could not know as a volcanologist. We, like a doctor, you know that if a doctor check a patient, a doctor can say that this patient is sick, so and is dying, for example. But the doctor cannot say when he will die or she will die. So that's that's the limitation that you cannot overcome until now. As a volcanologist, I could say that the probability is like 90% that this volcano will erupt, but it can be not erupting at all. Like human, maybe the doctors say that you got the cancer stadium 4 and the probability for you to survive is 1%, but then you survive. That's some things that happen similarly at volcanoes and also for the people. That's the analogy that I could. So yeah, that's we need to deal with this, and it is not easy to make people understand. And some of them, especially in Indonesia, they have different cultures, and some of them are really easy to be angry. In Jogja, like Frank's mostly stay, people are talking nicely and slowly. But if you're going to the east or to another part of Indonesia, people are really easy to be angry. And if you make a wrong decision, of course, we need to deal with it. We need to meet them, and we need to make them understand, even if sometimes it wasn't successful. So yeah.
Thank you, Paddy, for your answer. That was very clear. We have one last question, maybe for Frank, coming from Jean-Luc in our YouTube chat. Jean-Luc is wondering, talking about Babad and all the works you've done, if it could be interesting, why not trying to work with the FAO, École Française d'Extrême-Orient. It's a school, French Institute about social sciences and all, to work on the heritage of Samalas eruption.
I tried. I tried to work with FAO. I'm working with FAO for other subjects, on other subject, but I tried. I did my best, but they have no time, no money. I don't know, but at least no time, because there are only a few people, and all the staff of FAO, they all get their own projects, and in Sumatra, in Java, so they have no time, even if they are interested. You know. So I think what I would love is that is to involve, not me, but that people from Arkenas, the Indonesian volcanologists, were more motivated to work on Samalas. But the problem is that we need to wait that the local people find some not only small artifacts like until now, but how to say, a wall or tanggul, or houses or former, something bigger than only small pieces of whatever. And now, at that time, maybe there will be a big project to do a huge archaeological study about the Pamatan, if they found Pamatan. But that's what I hope, and I think it will occur. But until now, nobody found this city. So if the city exists, and I hope it will become the Pompeii of Indonesia, it will be great, even for tourism or for, it will be nice for everybody. But it's the next step, maybe, I hope, but not doing it.
Let's hope so, yeah, it would be.
The territorial trajectory of a volcano that is still erupting, or is it still safe to pass? Bapak Devi, what do you think?
It's completely dangerous. So I think you need to know that volcanic ash is very dangerous for aviation. So it can cause the aircraft engine failure. So it can make all the machine or the engine dead. So that's why we have the volcanic ash advisory centers that monitors all volcanoes around the globe, and their work is to monitor every eruptions with volcanic ash, because the airplane cannot. They can survive, but we know that there were some incident in the past that after during the Galunggung eruption in West Java, there was a plane and 4 of the machines failed, and so they need to make an emergency landing at Halim in Jakarta, because the machine was it was thankfully at that time the machine was recovered, only 2 of them, I think, and then they survived. But after that, any volcanic ash must be avoided by any airplane, and that's the tasks of the volcanic ash advisory centers. And we as volcanologists, we do communication to them through a communication system that is called VONA. So it's a volcano observatory notice for aviation. So any eruption, we will send. If there is a significant eruption with volcanic ash, we will send this VONA. And with our system now, it is already integrated to all the necessary stakeholders. So yeah.
Okay, Bapak. So avoiding is the solution. I hope Bapak Devi could answer the question of Bapak Johannes. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your question, and thank you, Pa Frank Lavigne and Pa Devi Shavana, for these amazing talks and discussions. Tomorrow we continue our Pesta Sains. We're going to talk about forests and tropical trees in Indonesia. So stay tuned if you want to connect with our researchers tomorrow at the same time. Thanks again to our 2 amazing speakers today, which made us a very great evening, or a great lunch break for France, maybe. And thank you so much again. Thank you, everyone. Have a very nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Terima kasih, Bapak.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Merci.
Selamat malam.
Selamat malam.
malam, selamat siang.